All right, let's take a quick look back at 2025. This isn't about selling anything, just documenting what happened and what we learned. Because that year was a big one. It wasn't about just shipping more stuff. It was about facing this huge shift in how the internet actually works, a question that was starting to hang over every single business out there.
And this was it. This was the one question that changed pretty much everything. I mean, just think about it for a second. When your customers start getting their answers directly from an AI, not from a page of blue links, what does being visible even mean anymore? Yeah, that question pushed us way beyond the old playbook of traditional SEO.
Okay, so let's really break this down. On the left, you've got the old world, right? It was all about rankings, how many pages you have, and how much traffic you get. And look, those things still matter, but they're not the whole story anymore. Over on the right, you see the new goal, AI-powered omnipresence. The game isn't just about ranking. It's about becoming the source that AI trusts and relies on. It's about building real authority, a solid reputation, and truly being the definitive answer to a question.
So how in the world do you build for that? Well, a lot of the work this year, it wasn't flashy. It's not something you'd see in a big marketing campaign. It was all about infrastructure, the deep, foundational stuff that's designed to still be standing long after the internet changes yet again.
And this is the real nuts and bolts of it. We're talking about creating systems that you can use over and over again. For instance, that AI content logic, that means structuring all your information, your product descriptions, everything, not just for a human to skim, but for an AI to clearly understand and cite. It also means realizing that conversational workflows, things like your support chats or phone calls, are now supercritical signals that prove your authority to an AI. This is the stuff that builds credibility that actually lasts.
And you could literally feel this shift happening as the year went on. I mean, at the start of 2025, the conversations were the same old thing. Where are we ranking? How's our traffic? But wow, by the middle of the year, that conversation had totally flipped. The focus was now on being visible everywhere and treating our entire reputation as training data for these AI models. And this, right here, this gets to the absolute core of it. It was a massive change in mindset. The old question, where do we rank? That's tactical. But the new question, are we the answer? That's strategic. It just forces you to think about authority and trust and clarity on a much, much deeper level. It's about owning the definitive answer, not just renting a spot on a search results page.
Okay, so let's be real for a second. Not every single idea worked. We had projects that had to be completely rebuilt, and some things just never even shipped. And you know what? That was actually a good thing. It forced us to slow down and think more clearly. That restraint, it turned out to be a huge advantage because it cut through all the noise and made the work we did finish so much stronger.
So, with that new focus and that hard-won clarity, what actually happened? What were the real wins? Well, they weren't just a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet. They were the kind of victories that grow and compound over time.
The biggest wins were about the systems we built. First, we stopped doing one-off projects and started creating scalable systems designed to last. Second, we went all in on AI early, building it into the core of what we do, not just as an afterthought. Third, we ignored the hype and just focused on getting the work done. This gave the business so many more options later on. And finally, and this is so important, we preserved relationships. No one got burnt out, no bridges were burned. That is how you build for the long haul.
And all of this brings us to the strategy for 2026 and beyond. It's not about doing more. It's about one word, leverage. It's about going deeper into what's already working, making those systems even stronger, and getting way more impact from the same amount of effort, instead of just adding more noise to an internet that's already incredibly loud.
Which leads us to maybe the most important lesson of the whole year. A lot of people worry that AI is going to replace thoughtful, strategic work. But what we found was the exact opposite is true. AI is a massive amplifier. It's actually rewarding that deep, foundational, authoritative work more than ever before. It's making quality and trust the single most valuable assets you can possibly have.
So when we look back, 2025 wasn't about crossing some kind of finish line. It was about pouring the concrete. It was all about building a solid foundation. And I guess the real question that leaves us with is, in an AI-first world, what kind of foundation are you building right now?